now let's check in with Peter Doocy with a look at how Team Harris is preparing. Hey, Peter.
Ainsley, tonight is going to be kind of surreal for Vice President Harris because for the last couple days, she's been staring at a staffer dressed as Donald Trump. And tonight, she's going to meet him in person for the first time ever.
I think he's going to lie. And, you know, he has a playbook that he has used in the past, be it, you know, his attacks on President Obama or Hillary Clinton. So we should expect that some of that might come out.
The vice president claims her values have not changed since 2019. So tonight, she may have to explain why in 2019 she wrote that she supported sex changes for migrants. With this quote, "I support policies ensuring that federal prisoners and detainees are able to obtain medically necessary care for gender transition, including surgical care, while incarcerated or detained." And she also may need to explain tonight the call to cut ICE funding, also in 2019. Quote, "Our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding to ICE." The basics of the rules tonight are as follows. Muted microphones, no live studio audience, only a pen, paper, and water on stage, no pre-written notes. The answers are 2 minutes. The rebuttals are 2 minutes. Follow-ups are 1 minute. The vice president decided to spend most of this week in Pennsylvania. She did debate camp in Pittsburgh, flew here to Philadelphia yesterday in the afternoon. She spent the night at a hotel as opposed to Donald Trump, who plans to fly up from Florida later on this afternoon. Back to you.
Peter, they have never come face to face. And I know the former president mentioned about a week ago there was a possibility at some point he might present her with a special gift.
Yes, former President Trump said at a rally that he thinks because he feels that the vice president is borrowing from his platform with things like the taxes on no taxes on tips, and he says that he's got a specially made MAGA hat for the vice president. It seems like they don't want the candidates to have props on the stage tonight, but what are they going to do? Are they going to pat him down to make sure he doesn't have a hat in his jacket if that is what he decides to do?
That would be an epic moment.
What would it say?
MAGA.
Make America. But he says it's a special one. You know, sometimes they change it, make America healthy
That's
again,
true.
make America whatever it is. What would it say? Make America tip-free or but it would be something.
Maybe it's just his autograph on it.
We'll see.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Peter.
and she could wear it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And we would show that tomorrow morning. All right, Peter,
No
thank
way.
you. We've got Ian Sam, senior Kamala Harris campaign spokesperson, going to join us in about a half an hour.
Excited to watch that interview.
So Donald Trump said he had about 6 sessions. He does Tulsi. He sat with Tulsi Gabbard. He sat with Matt Gaetz, and they talked about some of the attack lines that could be coming his way. And I think he's got to be ready for the Project 2025. He's disavowed it. They say a lot of your vice president endorsed it, endorsed the 900-page book. That was before he was vice president, before he was senator, by the way. And then they said about Project 2025. He's like, why would that be it? I think he'll be effective with that. The one thing they're going to say when it comes to Afghanistan, they're going to say, well, you had the Doha Agreement. When it came to the economy, you gave us a crater economy. So the president's got to be ready to answer that. I didn't give you a crater economy. I gave you a vaccine, and people started going back to work. What you did is kept people in lockdown for months and kids out of school. So he's got to be ready for that. But I think the American people are fundamentally fatigued by the pandemic talk. What she is going to look to be cool, composed, and look worthy. But if you talk about if you're going to talk about some of her policies, the Trump has got to make a decision. Do you focus more in 2020 or do you focus more in the last 3.5 years in the Biden administration? To me, there's a lot of targets. That is a target-rich environment.
Well, it has to be about the numbers. It's the number of people that have crossed the border. It's the number of Americans that have died because
He's
of
going to
Joe
say, well,
Biden.
wait a second, I've controlled it through executive action, and you forced me away from...
You say that to the parents that were killed, the kids were killed by illegals, and he should mention their names there. Have you called them, Kamala Harris? He should talk about the numbers of seniors that have had to go back to work, the kids that have to move back in with their parents because they can't afford this economy. Everything has to be about the numbers and how it's impacting Americans on the day. Tell their stories, because she's going to try to make it all about him. People don't care about that. They care about their circumstance.
They're gonna make
she's
him
responsible
selfish.
for it.
They're going to make him look selfish. He's doing it for himself.
Mark Thiessen wrote a great op-ed, and it's published in the Washington Post, and it's talking about how he can knock her out of the race in this one debate. Says that she's had cringeworthy word salads, but that Donald Trump has some risks as well. He can't come in too hot. And number one, he says that Donald Trump needs to remind swing voters of what they like about him and his policies. And he says, you know, Donald Trump will get on stage and say, you know, everyone's telling me stick to my policies, don't get personal. Yet the Democrats are personal all night long. And we saw that at the DNC. It says when he focuses on policy, he reminds swing voters of what they liked about his presidency. Number two, Steve, you want to take that?
Don't remind swing voters of what they don't like about him. And, we've heard a lot of people talk about, okay, Donald Trump, he gets too personal, and that is terrible for him. Stick to policy.
He says, don't mention January 6th. If you do, that's a losing, that you're going to lose. He said Kamala will try to bait him into defending January 6th, and he can't take that bait.
So we'd have to see how they do that. Point three, make Harris the incumbent and tie her to Biden. That's not too hard because she is, and she is.
He said, go ahead.
Go ahead.
In number three, he says Trump needs to remind voters that she's been in office for 4 years. Don't call her comrade Kamala, call her Madam Vice President.
There you go. And finally, make Harris's own her record. And listen, the problem is she's got a lot on her record because she has flip-flopped so many times or changed policies, whatever. Nonetheless, the former president, I'm sure, is prepared for that, and I'm sure she is as well. Mark Thiessen was on our program about 45 minutes ago and said this about what the former president needs to do.
His audience tonight is not MAGA voters. His audience is a small number of undecided swing voters in a handful of swing states who are going to decide the presidential election. So he needs to, those are voters who don't like the direction of the country, thought that he did a good job as president, but don't like a lot of his behavior and a lot of the things he says and are reluctant to put him back in the Oval Office. Everything he says tonight should keep in mind those voters and persuade them to vote for him. How do you prepare for a presidential debate? What do you do? First, you go through a series of primaries where you're being challenged by your own party. Then you do town halls with voters where you ask tough questions, not handpicked voters, like real voters, like in New Hampshire, where you go out and they're independents, people challenging you. Then you do interviews with media, and you do press conferences where people ask you tough questions. Then you lay out some major policy speeches where you lay out your agenda and think through what I want to do as president and arguments to defend that. And she hasn't done any of that.
You know, the hard thing about everyone that, of course, we all think we're the smartest people and you want to provide advice for the former president. You say it on TV and everything. I think the most challenging part is he's not your typical politician. And so when you're providing advice to him about what he should do, it has to be within his style, because he's going to be Donald Trump, as we've seen time and time again. And I think he wants to go on the offense. I think the only piece of advice I would say, it's totally fine to go on the offense. Just keep it within the policies that affect people on the day-to-day basis. He's going to do nicknames. That's who he is as a person. He's going to want to attack. You just can't allow her to get under your skin.
There's two things. You got Bernie Sanders saying she's saying anything to get elected. She's so progressive. And number two, you have somebody that just covered for Joe Biden for 3.5 years. Up until the day that she got the phone call from Joe Biden, she was defending him and his debate performance with Anderson Cooper
has to be brought up
that night. So what else are you not telling the truth about?
And you were against the border wall. Now you're for it. You were for decriminalizing illegals. Now you don't want to do that. The Green New Deal, you won't talk about it. Fracking, I was against it. Now you're for it. Medicare for all, now you're against that. Who is the real Kamala Harris?
Well, I think it's a great policy, transitioning prisoners, giving them taxpayer dollars. That's really going to be something to run on.
Ultimately, I think the Donald Trump debate style of 2016 was great for 2016. But fast forward to today, it's got to be a different Donald Trump. Can't get so personal as he was in those first debates in 2016. If he sticks to policy, his team will say he won.
I know we're all more mature from 2016, so let's grow up. America, let's
We'll grow up together.
Yes.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.